So the pandemic showed us that many different types of new collaboration are possible. And particularly if we focus more on how can we apply some new ways of collaborating and bridge academia with biotech industries, especially in Europe and with the States. So to take us much deeper into that subject, we now have our final roundtable and discussion for today, led by our CCO, VP Business Development at Abivax, Pierre Courteille. So Pierre, I hand over to you.
Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you to be with us today. So I'm delighted to moderate this great roundtable. I would like to introduce and set the scene on participants who work together in this new paradigm in education. I will introduce Gabriela, Florian, Patrick, Tim, and Robert. The original concept we are going to share today with you is the result of a collaboration between 5 peers with diverse geographics, linguistic training on professional journey, as well as an input for more than 100 plus colleagues from academia. An opinion paper will be soon submitted for publication in a top-tier peer-reviewed medical journal, and we are all honored today to discuss the highlights en avant-première. First of all, so let me briefly introduce the 5 peers represented today by Gabriela and remotely by Florian. So Gabriela Apiou holds a PhD. Gabriela is the endowed MGH Research Institute Chair in Translational Science, Director of Strategic Alliances at Mass General Hospital Research Institute. She's Director of Translational Research Core, Wellman Center for Photomedicine, and she's also Assistant Professor of Dermatology at Harvard Medical School. So Gabriela's main focus is on teaching and practicing new models of innovation through collaboration across academia and industry to deliver novel solutions to major healthcare challenges. In 2002, she was named the endowed MGH Research Institute Chair in Translational Sciences. She has chaired numerous sessions and has given invited talks in translational science, both nationally and internationally. She has co-authored original peer-reviewed papers in the field. Thank you to be with us and to have taken the plane to be here with us today. The second peer I would like to introduce is Dr. Florian S. Eichler, MD. So Florian is with us remotely. Florian is Associate Professor of Neurology at Harvard Medical School. He's also Director of the Center of Rare Neurological Diseases at Mass General Hospital. His career has been dedicated to advancing the care and treatment for devastating neurogenetic conditions. Florian runs a laboratory at MGH that explores the relationship of mutant genes to specific biochemical defects and their contribution to neurodegeneration. The third peer I would like to introduce is Robert Tepper, who unfortunately cannot be with us today, but Robert is a MD, is a co-founder or partner of Third Rock Ventures. I'm sure you know Third Rock Ventures, who is the main VC firm. He is a member of the Mass General Research Institute Advisory Council, and he focuses the formation, development, and scientific trusted strategy of new Third Rock companies. He also assumes active leadership roles in portfolio company. The fourth peer is Tim Ferris, MD. Tim is Professor of Medicine, Harvard Medical School, inaugural National Director of Transformation at NHS England and NHS Improvement, and Tim was the former CEO of Mass General Physician Organization until 2021. And the fifth peer I would like to introduce you is Patrick Apiou. So Patrick is a philosophy and social sciences high school faculty, International School of Boston. Patrick received his master's degree in philosophy from University of Nantes in France in 1990, on the equal opportunities and freedom in the democratic society according to Tocqueville's Second Democracy in America. And he received his master's degree in history from University Paris-Sorbonne. So after those introduction of those five peers, I would like to go to the heart of the matter with Gabriela. Okay. So, Gabriela, the COVID-19 collaboration has been a real breakthrough. I mean, we can all say that in terms of collaboration. Do you think those best practices will continue and become a recognized standard of practice?
A very good question, of course, and I think we all agree, and we have heard this on and on during the conference. I think the collaboration we saw happening was extraordinary. It was still driven by a historical crisis, but researchers in academia and industry, along with governmental institutions, with healthcare providers, with funding and regulatory organizations came together. They were able to leverage extraordinary but highly complex science, accelerate innovation, and at the end deliver a life-saving solution to patients and to the world. So I think what a great example. The question for us is now, can we make this more a current practice? Instead of an event-driven or a collaboration coming because of this crisis. And I must say, and I'm sure Florian will speak to that later on during the panel, we thought about this several years ago at Mass General. We didn't talk at that time about the COVID crisis, but we said, so critical healthcare, important healthcare challenges we are facing, how we can make sure people come together around our patients and make this happen, bring these solutions. So we will talk later on, but this is clearly an objective.
Florian, thanks a lot to be with us today. So what are your thoughts about that, the COVID collaboration? Can it be a sustainable, I would say, practice, or do you think it was exceptional?
Yes, first of all, delighted to join, and sorry you can't be there in person, but at least the remote opportunity is fantastic. I think the collaboration you saw around COVID-19 was extraordinary, and in large part driven, yes, by crisis, but also by unmet need. And I think identifying unmet need and understanding what a meaningful change could be is the rallying point, is the place where people come together. Unless you are pointing to that unmet need, pointing to the gap that needs to be addressed, people do not understand why they should be coming together. And I think in the COVID-19 scenario, it's quite evident that this was a global pandemic with people around the world being afflicted, and a huge timely solution needed. And that urgency, together with the unmet need, sparked the collaboration. So I think it's a really important question that Gabriela also raises. How can you make that standard practice? And I think part of making that standard practice is reminding everybody of the ongoing unmet need that and the patients we need to serve here. So in my field of rare diseases, I think there's a link from rare to common here. We work very closely with patient advocates, patient perspective, to identify unmet need and to drive collaboration forward.
Thanks, Florian. So the next question I would like to ask you, Gabriela, is why do you think these vast type of collaborative efforts bringing academia on the biopharma industry are needed from bench to bedside? And who are the partners, and what is the added value of such collaboration?
So this is, it's very interesting because we take a step back. Early this morning, we heard about how important basic science was and how important was to focus on something which is important. And Florian mentioned the unmet clinical need. So I think the problems we are facing are so complex. One lab, one institution, one country, because now we look to this US-Europe bridge, cannot solve it. So I think we need to acknowledge we need each other. And when we say we need each other, we need each other, but to come around a common mission. And Florian says it the best. Unmet clinical need and identifying the knowledge gaps, because this is where we really need to make sure we have the right colleagues and peers on board with us to address these gaps. So this common mission is a combination. We also think that at Mass General, we are the largest hospital-based research enterprise in the United States. 2,000 labs. We cover all medical field of applications, and we bring together biology, technology, and medicine. But I think very importantly, our common mission is to alleviate suffering and serve the others. So we think this should bring us together. And several years ago, we made a really strategic decision to give a try and to educate, also practice new ways of coming together. And it comes to, the answer would be, we look for what we call a structural collaboration, where we start with this unmet clinical need and the major challenge, a healthcare challenge we are facing. And based on that, we align science, people, resources, locations. So it's an intentional approach. It's a systematic approach we took to build teams of scientists at Mass General around these important challenges. And first to collaborate with each other, so internally, and then collaborate with their peers in industry in order to make it to the patients. So I would say we need to align all these stars. We need to be able to integrate, again, the technology, the biology, the medicine across academia and industry. And otherwise, Florian cannot treat his patients. And this is our ultimate goal, treating our patients.
Florian, do you have something to add, especially from a practical point of view?
Yes, I think Gabriela is spot on in terms of identifying the need for structured collaboration. I think looking back at my own career as a physician scientist, I realized 10, 15 years ago that as I was seeing a lot of these devastating conditions in my clinic, where children were coming to see me at death's door, coming in wheelchairs, declining rapidly, that there were life-saving treatments out there, and there was technology available, but I alone could not bring it to them. What I really needed is the partnership with biotech, with industry, and likewise, biotech needs physicians, needs patient involved and advising them. And so the first step is recognizing unmet need, but the second is recognizing one's own role in the landscape and also one's own limitations. So the fact that one recognizes one cannot do it alone and that one needs biotech and industry for manufacturing, for regulatory purposes when one is a physician scientist, and vice versa. Henry Tremere, who founded Genzyme and ran it for many years, he used to say to me, I drool over the opportunities you have to see patients and to hear from patients themselves what's meaningful and important to them. And so it requires really all stakeholders coming together and sharing their abilities and skills to make something happen.
Thanks, Florian. And Florian, from your experience, what are the major challenges and tensions that you were facing?
Well, I think the tensions arise from self-interest that everybody has, whether acknowledged or not acknowledged. There's self-interest in industry to be able to make profit, to maintain finances, to be able to interact with venture capital and continue to raise funds. There's self-interest in academia. There's people need to advance academically, be promoted, maintain their positions, publish. So tension, I think, arises in the first place out of recognizing that there is self-interest. But I think the tension can be overcome if one recognizes that beyond the immediate self-interest, there is an opportunity to contribute to a greater good, and that in the end, that contribution and that collaboration is far more rewarding, also on the side of the self-interests I mentioned.
Thanks, Florian. And Gabriela, with those 2,000 labs in MGH, how do you deal with that? How do you overcome the tension? And
I think there are several ways. Is a great, huge challenge, and maybe one pillar of what we wanted and tried to achieve was through education. And this is maybe we want to share with you. And the reason why we want to share, we think this is a paradigm shift in educating our faculty. And we will briefly talk about this, but it's also, we acknowledge this will not solve it all. But we think it's essential for the next generations, and we have heard this also this morning. Having this scientists, understand why important to collaborate with each other, why important to collaborate with their peers in industry. And when I say industry, this is biotech, large pharma, and venture. And what is the language? Very often we don't have the common language, so this is what we try to teach them. And also what it really takes. What it takes to go from this extraordinary discoveries happening at Mass General every day. All these observations our clinicians make when they treat their patients, but get this to transform this into something that is actionable and that would help people's life. So I think this is something that we thought absolutely critical. We designed this pilot teaching educational program. I co-direct with Bob Tepper, Florian, Tim, and Bob and Patrick were there from the beginning on. It took several years to design the concept and to make sure we don't create another training program or educational program. So I think I cannot emphasize enough how important it is. And something unique was to bring these very different people together and to think of, if we want to teach, we need a concept. We need a concept, and we need to take into account the different perspectives. And we worked on the patient perspective, because the patient will be able to help us align all what we, shape the unmet clinical need and align on these knowledge gaps. Then the historical and society, social sciences perspective, of course the biopharma industry perspective, and the physician scientist, and Florian is a great example in an academic medical center who invents and has ideas and how to get them there to our patients. So I think this teaching piece, we call this program today Bridging Academia and Industry, is here and has been successful. We think this will be key for the future. I will let also, of course.
Yeah. But Gabriela, from a practical point of view, it means that the researchers, I would say the developers, are all coming in an auditorium, and you teach them how to collaborate?
Absolutely. So what we did, and does it solve a lot? No, but we started by practicing this model. So we started by building large-scale programs. We call them challenge-driven programs, where we identify. We didn't go through each lab, but we asked our research community, what are the main problems we are trying to solve? And the problems may be a biology, a technology, a medical problem. And then we aggregated these problems under broader themes, and we created, and today we have 8 active teams, 250 investigators involved. But we built research visions around this with the goal of sharing this with our colleagues in industry, start with the broad vision and narrow it down to a common ground that would help us get to a relevant, at least, inflection point for a treatment and diagnostic. But we started like this, practicing, and we realized we needed to teach this. And these are small classes we put together, and there are 50 plus teaching faculty. Half come from industry, leaders in industry, half from academia. And we create this amazing network around these small classes of faculty. It's a long-term investment, but we think this will be the future.
So your major is in ophthalmology, right? So I think you are giving the right sight again to people that are short-sighted, right?
They are in their world. So what we try to make sure we build a common territory. Florian talked about each one territory. We all have our own territory. Is there a way to create a space where we all join a common territory and make this happen?
And Florian, what is your experience? Because what I understand from what you said at the beginning is you were frustrated in a way that the technology was there, but the pace of the research and the development was not in line with what you were expected. So are you optimistic, or have you seen anything that goes in the right direction in terms of delivering the right treatment on time to patients?
Oh, for sure. I mean, our world is changing rapidly right in front of us, and it's the pace of change is unprecedented. And just to echo what Gabriela said about the course, I think it's been a fantastic opportunity for young investigators, physician scientists, to learn about partnerships and bridging academia and industry. And it's more than formal teaching and lectures. It's actually about building community. And I think what Gabriela has done here is remarkable in bringing people together and simply having that discourse with, from physicians to venture capital to biotech to scientists, being able to listen to each other, being able to speak to each other, understand a shared language, understand common ground, that beyond one's own expertise, there are other things needed in order to drive and bring progress forward. I guess the only thing I would say and caution about is that I don't think the essential tensions and can be overcome. They just have to be acknowledged. They continue to be present, even when you bring a treatment to the bedside, to the patient. The tensions continue. Now that we've not only completed trials, we have a first FDA-approved gene therapy for adrenal leukodystrophy. There are still huge tensions around cost and access to drug, and how do we communicate with patients and families about these challenges. And often venture capital and biotech are talking to each other, but the patients who are actually taking the risks by participating in these trials and are in need for these treatments, they often don't understand why financing stops, why trials are put on hold, and when a treatment becomes available, it's also difficult for them to understand why these costs are often limiting to them receiving treatment. So I think the tensions remain, and they continue to be at every stage of development very pertinent and need to be addressed by us collectively.
So what I understand from you both is that really breaking the silos are keys, and secondly, it's mutual understanding of what the others are doing, so a little bit of empathy on what the others are doing in order to better work and to speed up the process. But did you receive some feedback from the students, I would say, from your course, and what they think about? They came back to you, and what they think about before and after.
So I think, I would say it in one. They say it best: eye-opening or life-changing. And the reason I think there is a big surprise at the beginning, because we bring to them all these different perspectives, and then they meet people who share their professional experience, the challenges and also the rewards, because they were able to reach out to different people and bring them on board. And I think this is something important. So very positive feedback. Do we need to do more? Yes. I think also I would like to emphasize how much of a two-way street it is, because we bring in from the research community to you. We talked a lot about biotech and large pharma here and venture firms, but all this research coming into biotech, into large pharma. So this is our everyday job to make sure we connect with you. But we need you all, and I know many of your colleagues, Florian, from the biotech and pharma industry are here to take the time and to build this common language and to shape these visions that we make it most relevant for the patients at the end of the day. I mean, this is really, and this is it's a mentality shift for many different reasons. And as Florian said, there are tensions. We have our own in our environment. You have yours in industry. But we are so interdependent. We are very different in terms of objectives and processes involved, but so much interdependent. So we need to find a way to take it seriously, systematically, and make this happen.
And for you, Florian, you got some feedback from people that were involved in this process? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the universal response from all participants has been that of empowerment. There's a huge sense of coming out of this course with not just a better understanding of how drugs and treatments get to the patient, or how ideas lead to formation of companies, but an overall sense of, oh, I can contribute, I can do this, I can make a difference. And I do this first and foremost by identifying what I don't have, not what I have. I think in academia for decades, if not centuries, we've been taught to learn about one's own expertise first, and hone that ivory tower mentality. But I think as young investigators are taking this course, they're really coming out with a sense of, actually, what I don't know is far more important than what I do know. And just identifying that and stating that and bringing in people who can help address questions that one has been very empowering to the course participants. So I think it's a great model.
But in Europe, we have this urban legend that you have researchers going to the Starbucks, meeting the VC, and so on, that you really, in Boston, do not need such a process because things are smooth and everything is okay. But discussing with Gabriela, I learned that even MGH, who is, a worldwide recognized organization, you need such a process. So can you elaborate on that?
I think we are, obviously we are one of the most successful institutions in the world. But I think we are smart enough to think how we sustain this and look to, smart but humble, modest, to say, but what about the future? How do we sustain this effort? And look to our discoveries. How many of our discoveries go to patients? And it's absolutely not the majority. So we need to acknowledge this and to be modest and say, maybe we can do better. So I think this is at the foundation. And the other thing, we now open new doors, and we hope. We have a vision, and Florian also speak to that today. We have a vision. Our hope is that more and more of our colleagues, first, they will share the vision, they will shape this vision, they will take this to the next step, and this is why we are so committed to train our best scientists together with our colleagues from industry, because this is what we need to do, so that we hope in the future they will naturally come together, share, and solve important problems. I think this is, and it's a new expertise. The members of my teams, they are all scientists. I had this discussion earlier today. Some of them, they joined some of your companies here, and I'm so proud of them, because these were scientists, fellows, top-notch, contributors to our research. They spent some years through these processes, mechanisms, which are very creative and still new. And now they are there, and then one day they will come back. So we need to build this generation of scientists who will be able to navigate this world. So I think this is why we are so committed.
Thank you. I think we can now take questions on the floor. Question there.
Do we have a microphone?
Microphone?
Yeah.
Hello, Anya Feraoun. I'm Managing Director of PharmaMar. I have a question. You mentioned a COVID collaboration. I understand a collaboration between doctors, hospitals, institutions, biotech, pharma. What about collaboration with other countries such as China, Russia? And I didn't understand why when they developed a vaccine, COVID vaccine, it was not really recognized by the community, and people from China with Chinese vaccine had to get other vaccines if they wanted to come to Europe, some European countries, and same from Russian a vaccine, they had to get new shots from European COVID vaccine. So the question really is, what about collaborating with other big countries such as China and Russia?
I'm not sure this is the right question for us, and I don't know, Florian, maybe you want to add to that. We are talking here research collaboration, so this is very much our thing, and we are international people. I mean, both me and Florian trained in Europe, by the way, and did part of our training in the US. Yes, international. So, but as specific to COVID, I wouldn't have the answer for you today, because I don't think this is not my expertise or the analysis. I could speak to that. I can certainly think about or reach out to my colleagues and be in touch, but I'm not sure I can really answer your question.
Yeah, maybe I'll just briefly add. So I do think that international collaboration is hugely important. And if we're looking at geopolitics today, it's saddening to see that in many ways we seem to be drifting apart on a geopolitical level rather than coming together. So are there obstacles there? For sure, and I'm not denying this. But I would say as an academic research community, we've always been extremely open to international collaboration. And one of the things I love about conducting trials is that all the participants in our gene therapy trials and rare disease trials come from all over the world. Our recently completed gene therapy trial had participants from Algeria and Russia and South America and Central America. What happens once drugs are approved is a different matter, and that's where we have to continue to think about access to the world. And those people who participated from other countries, they deserve also continued access to drugs, also to acknowledge their participation and the risks they took in participating in trials. So I don't have easy answers here for sure, but I think it's a very important topic.
And I'm sure also there's some geopolitical issues that we cannot tackle here.
But I think I would add the research Florian said, this goes across. For example, part of this education, we try very hard and we work very hard to bring international people on board and have people from our side going across these countries. I think this is also the way to maybe be better in addressing these access questions in the future.
A last question?
We have time for one more question. Yep.
Yes.
So it's more a comment than a question. I think I'm one of the employee of your former students and collaborators, and I really believe in this collaboration. Actually, I belong to Sanofi. We are one of the founding partners of the Paris-Saclay Cancer Cluster, which aims at regrouping also here in Europe academics, industry, biotech, and so on. And I think we would really probably learn, from what you're doing at MGH, to try also to implement a similar thing here in Europe. So I'm just a comment, actually, more than a question, but I look forward to continuing to discuss with you on this.
Thank you. We look forward to that.
So thank you very much. And in conclusion, I must say that breaking silos is essential, and communication and accepting differences and having empathy would definitely ease the timeline for making the best innovative breakthrough product available for patients as soon as possible. And thank you for your experience, Gabriela. Thank you, Florian. And I'm sure we will think and we will study what you have put in place in MGH as a best practice and try to do it here in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. In 5 minutes, we have the award ceremony for our pitch competition, which will be followed by the closing ceremony of this 4th edition of Health Tech Innovation Days. So 5 minutes break.